Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and as always, I'm here with my good friend, colleague, and co-host, Jim Gurley. Jim's on the road. He's been on the road for a few days on his own and is going to be on the road for a few more. And I think, at least in part as a result of that, one of the things we were talking about is solitude and being alone, and then this notion of one's persona, because Jim's also at a point where he's just turned 60, and that happened to me a couple of years ago. So we both have stories about that experience in regard to our individual personas and the evolution of those personas. So let me read the definition or some context around this word persona, and then
Yeah, hey,
again,
Mark, and before you do that, I'll get, like you said, just some context, and then,
yep.
but yes, this is a road trip. Will be every bit of 7 days, probably, maybe a little bit more. But and that's how I came up with the word solitude, because I guess your description, what I really appreciate was it's different than being lonely.
Mhm.
The solitude is when you choose to be alone, and that allows for time of self-reflection and thinking. So
Mhm.
that was the word solitude describes that bestly. And then the as a result of that, you also have time to think about your personal persona at different stages in our life. So uh, yeah, let's run with it.
Yeah. So persona, you sent me, I don't know if I'd call it a definition, but some context around the word. A personal persona refers to an outward facing version of oneself that an individual presents to the world. It's the collection of behaviors, attitudes, mannerisms, and even appearances that someone consciously or unconsciously adopts in social interactions. Think of it as the mask we wear in different situations, allowing us to navigate social context, fulfill roles, and manage how others perceive us. A persona isn't necessarily inauthentic. It could be a genuine expression of certain aspects of our personality tailored to specific environments. For example, someone might be more outgoing and assertive at work, their professional persona, quote unquote, but quieter and more reserved with close family, their family persona, as it were. However, a persona can become problematic if it's a significant departure from one's true self, leading to feelings of inauthenticity, stress, and burnout. That sounds like a whole psychology session wrapped up in one phrase, Jim, right there, boy. Um, the We can go a lot of different directions with that, so I appreciate you sharing that. The next one, and then we can start the conversation, is this word solitude that you mentioned. Solitude means the state of being alone, often by choice. It can involve physical separation from others, but it can also refer to a state of inner peace and introspection, even when others are present. Solitude can be sought for various reasons, such as reflection, creativity, rest, or simply the enjoyment of one's own company. And some examples of how solitude is used in different sentences and examples are some of the things I think you and I will start to get into here. So, yeah, tell us about your trip, Jim. And was the solitude thing a choice, or was it just something that happened?
Well, it's an absolutely a choice that in recent years become more deliberate about it. I think we all seek that occasionally. Hey, I need to get alone. I need to spend some time alone. But spending 15, 20 minutes alone is different than spending um, 7 days alone, particularly with driving time. There's something about driving time. It's because you're a capsule, right? There's very, very few interruptions, and sometimes there's no cell service. So, um, as you know, I have a van, so uh, I find it to be very. There's a time for reflection. You would normally not take that kind of time
Mm-hmm.
because there's distractions if you're in an airport or if you're moving around doing things. But when you have a 10-hour straight drive from one place to the other, uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's a time for reflection. But yeah, I was just thinking about this personal persona because they tie together. Um, that we all, it's one of my favorite quotes. I think you've heard me say it before, right? We are all actors in this theater of life. He who plays the best role and wears the best mask wins. So it is true. We play these different roles at different stages, whether it's being a father, whether it's your entrepreneurship. But now all of a sudden, at this middle age point, it's a different role. And part of what I liked about what I sent you was it's time to update who that is, because we do change, right? Our
Hmm. Hmm.
perspectives change, and I think it's good. It's also being authentic, but also caring less what others think. Um,
Mm.
and that's there's some freedom to that. There's some liberty that you're not attached to the things that you once were. So yeah, I know you'd mentioned you'd gone through this at a stage in your life, and not by choice, the solitude, but I found that was
Yeah, it's interesting. It was and it wasn't by choice. It was like I was put into the situation of having to make that choice involuntarily. I got divorced.
mhm,
That was not a choice. That was not my choice. That was something that I chose to engage in because I felt like I had no choice at some point. And then I was all of a sudden from married, all of a sudden I'm single. And then there's choices to be made there, which are, do I want to take some time to myself here and kind of recover from this, or for lack of a better phrase, or do I want to invest in another relationship so that I'm not alone? And what I discovered, I can't tell you that I saw it coming, Jim, or that I knew what was going to happen, but I found myself really enjoying being alone.
hmm,
And I was alone for 10 years. And when I say alone, I have to caveat that with the fact that I have 3 kids and I had a dog who's since passed, and I had friends and other family. So I wasn't like on an
mhm.
island without communicating with
But you
people.
did
But
not have a committed relationship for
I
10
did
years.
not. I did not have a
Interesting.
committed relationship for 10 years after coming out of one for about 16 and a half.
Mhm.
So totally different. But also at the same time, I was becoming middle-aged, whereas when I was married, I was not yet middle-aged. I was yet to be middle-aged. So those two things were going on in parallel. I didn't connect either one of them. But as you probably have found, at least to a little bit of a degree on your trip now, the more solitude you have, the more ideas come, the
Oh,
more thoughts
absolutely.
come, and
Yep.
the more your mind works a little differently for me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, gratitude, when you have time to reflect and you have solitude, eventually you'll start to appreciate things, um, because you can reflect on things, and just I give an example. So it's the best version of yourself when your mind is clear. You can think of things, you can process things. It's amazing how much you miss when you're so busy you can't think about it. Little
Mhm.
things that apply to life. I do appreciate my wife. She's at the stage now. We've been married a long time, over 3 decades, but where she almost encourages it. It's
Mhm.
and that wasn't always the case either, right? It was like, "Where are you going? Why do you want to go alone?" And I was just very honest with her that I said, um, "I want to go alone because I like solitude. It's not
Mhm.
that I don't want to be with you, but but I'm better alone when I'm with you. Where I'm better because of that." And so
Mhm.
it's not uncommon, and I'm generalizing, but women don't like to be alone.
Y-
Women like to have somebody with them, the companionship or the security, whatever it is. So it is different. I really do. I think, and this, we talk about stoicism, and this is a kind of a stoic thing that was very common, right?
Yeah. 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 Well, I think part of this is our recognition of our nature as well, because we all have a
Yep.
nature. We all have a human nature, and men have a certain nature and women have a certain nature. But I think we all have our individual natures as well, because I think what you're describing is unique to you. Not that you are alone in that, not that no one else does things similar to what you're doing, but I think your experience right there is unique to you, right?
Yeah, no question. But Mark, what I want the other difference about this stage and reflection and personal persona, because we always have a personal persona, whether we're
Hmm.
self-aware of it or not, we
Hmm.
are. projecting a certain image and this and that. But at this stage, all of a sudden now we have this physical change, right? When we don't look like we used to. So when you walk into a room, you don't know that you don't look like you did. It's very odd. Um, and sometimes you don't realize it till the next day. But as I said, I met a very good friend in Scottsdale, and we went out to this really, really nice. I think it was a hotel bar restaurant lobby, and y- yeah, it was a great time, interaction. Met a guy was a former professional hockey player, and his wife was like an Instagram model or something. I don't know. So that was one conversation. There's another different groups of people, and
Yeah.
but yeah, you're not young anymore. So
You
you
know,
sort of
that's
look
a
along on that section of the bar where they look like our kids, and then there's this other section of really, really old people that look like our parents, and you definitely don't want to be with them because they don't belong there. And then there's these, the corporate guys or the golfer guys that are doing what those guys do, and I didn't want to be part of them. So yeah, there was three movies going on at the same time, even though this is
Oh yeah, there's probably a lot more than three. Three you noticed. You know, it's funny. It's so funny that you bring that up because I joke a lot about, looking in the mirror going, who's that old guy?
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
recognize that guy. And then the other thing and this, I can say this to you and the world can hear, I don't give a shit, but it's like, when I was a young man, I didn't have any trouble attracting the attention of young women. And they used to look at me. And now I'll walk into a room or I'll walk into a public place and there'll be a pretty girl walking, not a young kid, but maybe a 30 or 40-year-old woman. And she doesn't look at me. I'm like, what the fuck? You know? And then
I
I
do
just
know
start, and then I just start laughing. Like,
uh,
who the hell do you think you are, dude? You're 63 years old. She could
well,
be
that's
your daughter.
maybe I had that epiphany the other night. Yes, yeah, I think you realize it. 'Cause and the other times I'd been to Scottsdale a number of times, um, my son went to ASU, so he went to school there, so that was a different stage, 10 years ago or so.
Hmm.
And then prior to that, we did a lot of rugby tournaments and tours there. So you're right; those are different, very different stages of your life.
Uh-huh.
10-year increments, right? I
Uh-huh.
was traveling with the team. Of course, I was playing, so I was, you know, yeah, probably 210 pounds, 208 pounds of pure muscle, at that
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
Young and yeah, you're just different, but
Vibrant. Yeah. Yeah.
vibrant, but you don't know you're not different. Like to
No,
your
I think a
point,
lot of us are. I mean,
a
I feel like,
mask.
yeah, I feel like I'm an 18-year-old most of the time until
Be really interesting. Yeah.
something physical reminds me that I'm not, or I passed by a mirror or a window or some. It doesn't take much, but I think we all, at least I do. I shouldn't say we all, but my persona to me in a solitude moment is I'm a young man. It's how I feel, it's how I think. And then I have to be reminded that I'm not in order for me to step into, say, my personal or my professional persona or my father persona or my son or grandfather persona, right?
Mhm.
And so I think those personas are interesting because when I read that definition to you at the beginning, I thought, well, that sounds like we're kind of faking it. But in fact, when I move into my dad persona, there's nothing fake about that. I'm a dad in that moment, right? And then when
Right,
I,
but that's what part of the description was, being authentic, right? I do
yep.
think it requires some work. Like, what is this persona? What are we projecting out that
Hmm.
let's say aligns with our physical look in relationship to how we view the world at this stage in our life?
Hmm.
And it's something I've got a couple more another what am I another 10 hours worth of driving or maybe more,
Hmm.
15 hours worth of driving. So but yeah, I really think personal persona change is something that uh, it needs to be intentional, and you do that. I don't know what it looks like yet, and I don't think it's anything dramatic, but definitely updating our personal personas, I think is good because we are pushing something out. So we might as well be aware of it and be more intentional about what that looks. I think one of the things, and you've mentioned this before about um, just being more yourself. How do you describe it as speaking more true to who you are in terms of
Hmm.
how you see the world and not holding back.
Authenticity.
It's
Yeah.
authenticity, but I think it's a little different because it's almost uh, you really want to push that out because you believe in it. And I feel kind of the same way. I think we hold a lot in. We're told not to say things and hold things in,
Hmm.
and the more I think about it, is more I'm maybe cheating myself out of being truly who I am. And I think that was the takeaway. Being super nice and being very passive or holding my thoughts, that's makes other people comfortable, but you're not really truly being yourself because you're doing that
Yeah.
because you don't want to say something that may offend them or that they may not like you. And then you're thinking, well, I really don't care, and they don't really know me or like me anyway. So eh,
Well, what's interesting about that, Jim, you said it earlier, like caring less about what other people think is part of
yeah,
this journey, right? I think if you're shooting for happiness, if you're shooting for fulfillment, if you're shooting for success, whatever those words mean to you, those are all positive to me. At some point, you have to start caring less about what people think or you'll go insane
and
because
say it
there's,
and
yeah,
move on to the next person. Either they like you or they don't.
that's
But
right.
but
That's
by
right.
not saying it or holding things back, and you never know what you get, right? I think some people, we talked about this in the last episode about vibration, good vibrations, fun,
Hmm.
being truthful, being authentic in public. It gets everybody happier.
Yeah.
People are bummed out a lot of times. Either because of social media or the news, and bringing life into a room because you want to have a little fun, a little humor. I think the world needs that right now. You
No
could tell.
question.
We're,
No
we're
question. I think the danger with that, at least from my perspective, is that we're not responsible for other people's happiness. So
yeah,
to take on that responsibility, I think can be dangerous. Having the desire to uplift people and vibrate positive energy at people, I think is
yep.
very positive.
You know
That
what?
that
And if they
doesn't
get
mean
offended
they're
by, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
doesn't that
Sorry to
doesn't
interrupt you,
mean
Mark.
that doesn't mean you're going to make them happy though.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but yes, to add to what you were saying, if you do irritate them or piss them off, fuck them. If they're that uptight, they didn't like you anyway. So what
I
what difference
agree.
does it make? Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree. No, my dad had the old saying, if I walk into a room with 10 people, two people are going to like me, two people are going to hate me, and the other six aren't even going to know I'm there.
It's
And I
so
think
true.
that I think that the other piece of that he likes to talk about that is germane here is the ability to ignore what someone's saying or ignore someone's facial expression or ignore someone's behavior. It doesn't always apply, but sometimes you just have to ignore. Like, I'm not paying attention to that, right? That I don't have the energy for that right now. And
Yeah.
so, but I think I'd like you to comment a little bit because we were talking about this too in the pregame about the fact that you're 60. Like, how does that factor into this discussion, if at all?
Well, yeah, it factors in because you find yourself in different places, right? Whether it was the local bar, the town where my family is from, my father was born, and like I mentioned to you, there was some guys were playing pool, or it was a group of people playing pool. So I already look completely different because I'm from California and there's California license plates. So I'm already different to begin with. They could tell.
Hmm.
Uh, you can't hide it. It's so obvious, right? Uh, so that's part of it, and then just the difference of somebody that's in their 30s versus somebody in their 60s. You look different, you think differently. They're in a whole different place. So this was kind of fun. I just started talking. They were playing pool, and then before we know it, I was watching them play pool, and then I was the guy was giving me pool lessons, which was fun because I'm not a very good pool. I didn't never learned how to play pool, so it was just the interaction because I approached them and said, "Hey, who I am, a little more outgoing than I probably would have been at home."
Hmm.
And now all of a sudden, you've got this group of people and you're learning things and da 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 da. So that was just one example of it. But I had nothing in common with anybody in that place, so I wasn't even going to try.
Yeah,
There's no,
isn't it interesting? Couple things that pop into my head. Isn't it interesting? You mentioned being away from home. You didn't use the word courageous, but it kind of can make you a little bit courageous when you're not around anybody that knows you, right? It's like
yeah,
none of these people know me. I feel like that gives me a little bit of license for some freedom here, whether it's expression or comments or jokes or actions or whatever. But it's like, do I really give a shit what any of these people think about me? Nobody in here knows me. So I'm going to be a little braver, perhaps. I don't know,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. And the other is most people uh, want to have a conversation with you. It's really interesting to me how so many people will not say anything. They'll be very much to themselves. But you find that if you approach them the right way, they want to get to know you. They want to have a conversation, and I think that's you can push out some good vibrations and good intentions by making that effort. So we'll see how it goes. But that's my takeaway from this trip.
Yeah,
The
no,
other,
I
the other,
think, go ahead.
yeah, the other interesting about this trip, and we've talked about this before about uh, getting to know. I remember this is a family property that my brother and I own, and this goes back to our DNA because when you go to an area of people that have the same bloodline, you
Hmm.
start to see yourself, but you also I saw my father, I saw my grandfather, my grandmother, my aunts, my uncles, and those behaviors and everything about that is there. It's very interesting, and you don't recognize that until you're in it. It's also a small town without a lot of opportunities, so you start to appreciate them why they left. Now you know why they left, but how different I would have been if they didn't take that trip to California.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No, I
and,
say,
and
and I would say, without trying not to sound presumptuous, that this is part of your reflection on being 60, because I think that
yep.
if you visited that same place when you were 30,
No,
your
I did, by the way, and
yeah,
had not have this experience at all.
yeah, yeah. So
Interesting you say that.
I think that when you start to make the choices that middle age brings, or turning the clock at 60, or whatever you want to call it, because I just did that 3 years ago. I told you
Mhm.
about my birthday party. I lost my shit. I had so much anxiety. I was like,
Yeah,
I didn't see this coming at all. But what
yeah,
happened after that, which is kind of where you are now, is whether you call it your persona, which I suppose it is. This is the evolution of your persona based on
mhm,
this recognition to some extent that you are of middle age now, and your role in life is
yeah,
different. Your role as a father is different. Your role as a husband is different. Your role as a friend is different. I mean, you told me about your friendship with the guy that you were visiting, and not to get
mhm.
into any details, but that's a different level. That's a different type of friendship, it sounds like, today than it might have been 30 years ago, you know?
Yeah, no question. Another thing, when you have this time, obviously listen to some podcasting and you reflect on some things about changes in the industry and how every there's a time period. So in Silicon Valley, it was all about kind of the tech nerd, the Zuckerberg kind of guy, right? And how um, that was the persona to be a tech guy, and that worked. But we're coming out of that. So even Zuckerberg himself now is an MMA guy. So it's this manly
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's really interesting. It's now it's all of a sudden this being more of a manly man, and that's the
Isn't that
new.
funny? Isn't that
Isn't it
funny?
funny? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and there's all kinds of examples of it, but there's this major change going on. And what they're the pioneers, they're kind of the innovators of the next, and they don't want to be like the geeky guy. That's old, that's the old stuff. Now
Well,
it's this new generation.
you also see these guys who are also not Zuckerberg, but Bezos for sure, middle age. The guy's walking around ripped like he's fucking Charles
Yes, it
Atlas.
was
And I guarantee you, when he was in his 30s, that guy was a fucking shirt swimmer. He wasn't taking his
yeah,
shirt off in his 30s. I can tell
yeah.
you that much.
So this is also back to the persona change, right? I was
Yeah,
never that geeky, nerdy guy for sure.
me
So,
neither.
and yeah, and now that it's also more about the technology is at the stage now. It really is more about, especially with AI, domain expertise, really solving a big problem. It's not the tech anymore, right? It's that the tech is now there, and the next frontier of innovation is taking this knowledge and applying it, but doing it in an authentic way, not in a geeky way, but being really passionate about something that you believe in, and then going and building it, and how it shift from the tech more to the industry or the problem you're solving with the technology. That's
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
kind
I
of cool.
suppose there's an argument for it was always about the solution, depending. It was the
Yes.
technology were just the tools. But yeah, it used to be technology used to be a bigger deal. We used to joke a lot about, hey, that guy that was the nerd in high school is you're going to report to him in 15 years, and now
Yeah.
that's not the same story anymore. But
Yeah. It may also made me think about our podcast, right? The Imperfect Men's Club. The
yep.
imperfection is the perfection.
Hmm.
Uh, we maybe got ahead of it a little bit, Mark. It's back to being a man. It's not something we apparently we were apologizing. The persona was not to be a man; it was to be less of a man. So you look somehow that was more masculine. I don't know. I never got that one, but
I
apparently
would
that's
like
really
to, yeah.
changing right now.
I,
The tides
I
have turned.
Thank you for bringing that up because
Yeah.
I would like to think, and this is just between you, me, and the lamppost, I suppose, but it's like I don't think we ever caved, you and me. I don't think
I
we
know.
ever caved.
I feel very good about that. That
Yeah, I don't.
we've been authentic, and it's not like we have to pivot and be somebody we're not. We just have
No,
to go all in on
no.
who we already were. But
Somebody said on the news the other day, it's one thing to be, doing this and doing that from a procedural standpoint or a policy standpoint as a politician, but people can see inauthenticity a mile
Mhm,
away. It's
mhm,
the not being authentic is the worst thing one could be, as far as
mhm,
I'm concerned. And I think we stuck to our opinions. We didn't do, there was not a lot, we weren't pompous or bombastic or
mhm.
arrogant. I just think it was like, no, we don't get this. This doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense,
yeah. Well, apparently it's shifting in a big way. It's kind of exciting. I think some really exciting times to come on a lot of levels in
Yeah,
business
yeah.
and technology. Uh,
Well,
a lot of things.
I think the solitude thing, I don't want to forget to mention this because I think, as I've told you many times, when I engage somebody for my services, which are whatever, professional development, leadership, moving forward, the first thing I ask people to do is self-reflection. It's the first
Mhm,
thing because that's where all the stuff is, right? That's where all the truth is. That's where all the hard stuff is. That's where all
mhm,
the authentic stuff is. And I think as humans, at least in my experience, we dance around those things because some of those are difficult. Some of those are hard to acknowledge. Some of those are hard to admit.
mhm.
And, but without that self-reflection, which I think is fueled with solitude and moments alone,
No
I
question.
don't think I don't think you can make your next move with any authenticity or any certainty. And
Yeah.
I think that so what you're doing right now, among other things, like you visited your friend, you saw your piece of property, hopefully you maybe hooked, I don't know if you got to see your brother or whatever, but you
Yeah.
had a purpose that wasn't just I want 7 days of solitude, but
Yeah.
you got that along with this, which
Yeah.
is great, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It is. So far, so good. So we'll see. A few more days, but good talk, Mark. I appreciate it. And until next week, right?
Yeah, travel safe on the way home, brother. We'll talk to you
Uh,
next week.
all right. Sounds
See